Hey guys, I want to talk about how much I loved Sunrise on the Reaping by Susan Collins, the new Hunger Games book. And I'm just going to talk about all the things I love about it. To start off, I really love the first two chapters. I think it's set up just to make us fall in love with Haymitch and Lenore Dove and their life and their relationship. And then it rips it away from us in like a very gutting, like kind of just like horrible way, but it's really well done. She spends like 10% of the entire book, like on just the first two chapters, and it's a big investment, and I think it really works. I really liked the quote at the end of chapter two. The moments our heart shattered, it belongs to us. Like with Lenore Dove's final gift, where she like, where Haymitch sees her as the train is pulling away. Like I thought that was just really really powerful. Um, Next thing I'm going to talk about is another detail I noticed, which is all the things that Haymitch and Katniss have in common. Like they kind of mirror each other in a really interesting way, which I kind of like. I think it's intentional. They both have little siblings, right? Katniss has a little sister, and Haymitch has a little brother. And when I first read that he had a little brother, I don't know, my instant reaction was like, oh, it's going to be the same thing. Sid is going to get called into the games, and Haymitch is going to volunteer. But no, his little brother was only 10, so I was like, oh, that can't happen. They both have single moms with dads who passed away in a coal fire. They both like to go to the woods a lot and have a lover who spends a lot of time there. They're both 16 years old. They both wake up on the reaping day at the start of their story. And then this one's a major spoiler, and this whole video is gonna have insane spoilers. I'm just gonna spoil the whole thing. So if you haven't read it yet, I recommend clicking off. But both of their little siblings like burned to death, like which is kind of an insane similarity. But yeah, another thing I really like about this book is the title. I really like this title. I liked it because the book literally opened with the sunrise on the reaping. Like it opened at sunrise on reaping day, but it really was about like as I mean they repeat throughout the whole book about getting to live a day where the sun rises on the reaping and there isn't a reaping, right? Um, Even in the very beginning of the book, there's a quote about how like we're so sure the sun would rise, like in like the quotes before even chapter one. There's like a page of quotes, and then like there's like a quote about like oh we're so sure the sun will rise, blah 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 blah. And then like Lenore seemingly almost quotes that in like chapter one when she's with Haymitch talking about how like as sure as the sun will rise tomorrow, uh, and it's not so sure, right? She believes we can have a world without a reaping, and I just really like the title. I really like how it ties into the plot. I just think it's so creative. Always a huge fan of like creative titles like that. The fourth thing this book does really well that I want to talk about. So I have a little list I'm looking at because it's easier for me of all the things I want to talk about. But one thing I think Susan Collins is really good in this book is like making promises to the reader and then keeping them in a very specific way. And what I mean by promises is a little different from foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is just like here's a little detail and boom it pops up later. Like it's kind of hard to miss. It's kind of easy to miss a lot of the time. But when an author makes a promise, it's like when you have like a subconscious agreement with like a beat in the plot that the plot is going to go in a certain direction, and if it doesn't, it's probably going to be unsatisfying. So like an example of this in the book is like let's say um, that like not all the tributes died somehow, right? The whole premise of the games is that like all the tributes die, all right. And so if they didn't all die, it'd be very like it could be unsatisfying. Like imagine they all lived, like that'd be a very unsatisfying plot. That would never happen. That's an extreme example. But here's an example of how Susan Collins will make a promise to the reader, like that one, and almost makes us like forget the promise. I want to argue, make for like a second, and then keeps it right. Like suspends the execution of like where the plot is going for just a moment to like really make it hit hard. So like, for example, we spend over half the book leading up to the games, which I have a feeling a lot of people might not like because they might have been like, hey, I wanted, it's a Hunger Games book. I want the Hunger Games to be the entire book. But like, I actually like this better. I think like we got to get to know these characters. Excuse me. We got to know these characters for so much longer than the other books. We got to fall in love with like 3 times at least the number of tributes that we get close to in the first book. And speaking of, like, Maisie is my absolute favorite character in this book. And like, even though I knew she would die, like when she died, it hurt because I got to know her so much. And there was a moment where like I thought maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. Like I was deluded. Even like at the end with Lenore Dove, I knew like she would probably die, but like I totally forgot that when those two met up at the end and towards the end of the book, like it reunited. I was so bought in that like she was gonna live somehow. I just hoped so much, and then right, the promise of Lenore Dove's death, which was clearly gonna happen. Like then it happened, and it was like, oh my gosh, and like that book just did that really well. This book like executed stuff like that very very well. I really like speaking of Maisie as my favorite character. I was a huge fan of like the characterization she had as someone who wanted more than what life was giving her, right? And didn't love working at the candy store. Same with Wyatt, as like there was that whole line Maisie had where she said, "We never, none of us had any choices." Wyatt also was just like following what his family wanted. And Haymitch was like super judgmental about all the stuff about their lives, but really they were just following what like their family did. And like we never get to see what they wanted to do instead. That almost could be the point. We never get to find out like what life they would have lived, and neither do they. And like I think that's really hard hitting and really good character work, and especially Maisie, who I think is just such an incredible character. Oh, here's a detail I really like. There's a line at some point where Plutarch says reading in general isn't a popular pastime in the capital. That's a really clever like. In fascism, reading is discouraged. So I liked that line. I just wanted to point that out. And then, as I kind of wean off this kind of this video, I want to talk about one discussion I had with somebody when I was talking about this, which is what I don't guess if anybody watching wants to like leave a comment. I don't know if anybody is gonna end up actually watching this. I kind of just make these for me, but what do we think about like the mutts in the games and the amount of mutts and like the way the games go in general? Like I had a moment where I was reading it and I was like, man, these games must be really boring like for viewers. Like it's not even people killing each other. It's just a bunch of like personal punishments to tributes who misbehave. Like this guy's gonna get eaten by squirrels, and this one's gonna be eaten by birds, and this one, who even knows what happens to Marit, right? And it's like, I don't know. Isn't the point that they kill each other? And so I thought there was a lot of mutts, and I didn't hate it. It kind of made sense to me in World. I guess I'll give that argument, because I mean it's the 50th games, and part of the premise was we're gonna have all these really cool mutts, as President Snowden said in the beginning. And I'm sure for the past decade, all the games were filled with tributes killing each other, and maybe people in the capital were super ready for like this change. And then like we see in like the 74th, they go back to having less mutts, in Katniss's games. So maybe it was just a one-time thing, and it was really entertaining for that reason. The real thing is the volcano definitely made it less entertaining, but there's a chance that that was set off by Haymitch maybe. If not, that's a really terrible design to just kill 16 tributes all at once, like randomly. But what do you guys think? I know, like the games itself might have been a lot less interesting for a lot of people, and I'm curious, like what everyone has to say. Yeah, just to end off, I really like this book. It was really really good. It's really good because I read it a week ago, and I literally like didn't feel like I was able to talk about it for the first few days after I read it, because it would just make me too sad. Like I was really sad about the Lenore Dove thing at the end. It got me, but bittersweet ending, especially with that epilogue. I really liked the epilogue, but really good book. Probably my favorite book I read this year. Possibly the best Hunger Games book. I might title this video something along those lines, but it's been too long since I read the others that I feel comfortable saying that. And like, honestly, every time I read a book, I think it's my favorite book. So like, I don't know. If I reread the first trilogy, I think they're all my favorite book every time I read one of them, probably. But really good book. Really enjoyed it. Yeah.